My name is Tomáš Horáček and welcome to the Effect Talk. Today, this talk will be like partially theoretical, partially practical, and we will first very swiftly talk about we'll look on some basics, so you will understand like how Effect works with like very simple code examples. Then we will dive into application I prepared, and we will try to extend like a few functionalities in the application. This application is like fully Effect with React Native front end in Expo. And then we will have some like closing thoughts about like Effect, if it makes sense on your project or in projects in general. So let's start. What is Effect? So Effect is a TypeScript library. You can install it using npm or your preferred package manager for JavaScript. And it provides a lot of very, very useful primitives that are missing in TypeScript and that are kind of like present in a lot of other languages like Swift, .NET, Go, Rust, and other. So one of those primitives is like reliable functional data primitives like option, either, ref, array, record. Some of them we already have in like standard JavaScript library, but they are like lacking a lot of like very powerful features that are present in other languages. So in my opinion, Effect is like very, very good standard library that can be used, and it is like very well designed functional library. And good thing about Effect is that you don't have to have a degree in like category theory to really understand a lot of functional stuff. You can just use Effect very similar as you use normal stuff, and you don't have to really know a lot of hardcore functional programming things to be effective with Effect. Another thing that Effect provides is very good type-safe error handling, and we will look at it during the live coding. And it provides a lot of very advanced like concurrency handling, fibers, observability, scheduling, interruptibility of effects. It's like very, very well designed for creating like big applications that are like, could be very complex. Another thing, it has a very nice dependency injection handling, and we will also look at it, how it works. And in my opinion, main reason why to use Effect is that it helps build applications that are reliable, reusable, testable, maintainable, and scalable. So it's quite a lot, quite big promise. So we will see if Effect will deliver today. Okay, a little bit step back to the history. I consider Effect as like last evolution of like TypeScript or JavaScript ecosystem. I remember times before like ECMAScript 2015 when we used like very basic types and everything was like using complex. Then there were some like really basic functional libraries like Lodash, and we got promises and everything got better. Then for some time there was this like idea that everything is a stream, and there were some like other functional libraries. But I think we are past this era, and the Effect tries to solve a lot of issues and a lot of like complexities that were created by previous designs, and it creates like very nice way how to write applications. So enough about Effect. I think the best way how to understand what is Effect and what it can deliver is to just see how it works. So let's start with some basics about the Effect. Effect as a library is built around Effect type. So this is the type in TypeScript. It is a generic type. It has like three generic parameters. First one is and it is a immutable representation of lazy program. You will see what it means. Just take it as it is now. And it is a representation of program, some code. You can imagine like function that in some distant future or in near future or immediately can return some value. So you can think about like promise that returns value, but this is an effect. It returns value, but you also know what errors it can kind of like raise. It is not using exceptions. You get another mechanism, a much more reliable mechanism than exceptions. And those are like expected errors from the effect. So for example, when you have an effect for fetching data, it can fail because there is no internet connection or because the response is malformed. And the error is like visible way how to express that some effect can fail. It is expected errors. There are some way how to do unexpected errors. Those are called I don't remember. Those are called defects. This means, for example, that there is not enough space on the disk or not enough memory or some like very serious errors of similar kind that you don't want to handle explicitly and which usually leads into the like stop of the program or crash of the service, for example. And then you can express also requirements. This is like dependency injection way. We don't have to think about it in the basics, but we will see it later in the presentation. So you can express what are some like the requirements like database connection or I don't know, some HTTP service and things like that. So this is the effect type. And how you can create this effect, it's like very simple. You just have to install this effect library. And the easiest way how to create effect is just to call effect succeed. This will create an effect type, and it will create an effect that will return a number. You can see that the first argument, I will try to go here. Oh, sorry. The first argument is a number, which means that it returns number. Second argument, error is never. So it can never return errors. And never for requirements mean that there are no requirements for this effect. If we squint our eyes a little bit, you can compare it to promise. Promises are kind of similar but different. There is one big difference, and we will get to this different later in the slides. But you can think about like on the basic level, it is good like mind map how to think about effects. You can think about it as a promises. So you can create same way promise that will return a number with promise resolve, and this is like comparable code. So same thing with failure. I can return effect that immediately fails, so it never returns. The error is a type string, and it does not have any requirements. So same thing with promise. And you can see that the promise has one problem. It does not say what error I can expect. Is it like error object, or is it a number for ID of the error, or how does this object look? You cannot express it. It's like small defect in how promises are typed in TypeScript. With effect, you know, effect does not really care about what error you are using, but we will later see in the live code part how you can define like nice errors that are easy to handle. Yeah, so another way how you can create effect is using some like callback function. This is like very simple way how to create effect that is synchronous. So I will just provide data to a function. It is a function that returns effect, and this data will be parsed, and this effect will return any and unknown exception. Because effect don't know if this code can like throw an error, so it just says, I don't know if it can like throw. So it is unknown exception. There are ways how to handle this unknown exception and how to process this exception into some known exceptions, so you can parse it later. And similar thing you can do with promise. You just create like new promise with resolve, and it's like very comparable code. Okay, so this is very basics for the creating of effects, but then you need a way how to run effects. Unlike promises, effects are lazy, and you have to run them when you after you create them. So here I have this parse effect that will just try to parse JSON data. I will provide an argument, and it will create an effect. You can see that this effect returns any, but and there is an unknown exception, but it does not run now when I created the function. It just waits until I really run it. So I have to call this run sync, which will run the effect which is synchronous. There are ways how to run asynchronous effects. We will see it later. And there is a precedent in code you are most probably using in React, for example. So, for example, if I compare it, if we again squint our eyes a lot and compare it to React, you have a component, and when you run the component, it will not render something on the page. It will just represent what you want to render on the page. It will be this JSX element. It's not doing anything yet. To do anything on the page, you have to connect it to the root element and then to render it. So it is comparable to this, and it looks like disadvantage of effect, but actually it is very big advantage that you will see later will pay off. Okay. What about asynchronous effects? Same way as we have a try effect, we have a try promise that can create an effect from promise. So if you have some promise, it can be, I don't know, you can fetch using Axios or using like standard fetch function. Any library that returns promise can be wrapped this way in effect. And it will, this promise will kind of use set timeout to delay for milliseconds. You just provide how many milliseconds you want to wait. It will create an effect that returns a string. When it is done, it is like this, what the promise returns will be returned by the effect. And then if you try to run this effect using run sync, it will crash because effect run sync tries to return immediately the value, and it cannot return immediately value from promise. So you have to run effect as a run promise. So it will create a promise that you can await, and this way you can kind of like inject promise into the effect, do the effect stuff, and then get back promise for the processing later. Okay, and last basic pile or building block that we will need is a pipe, which is a function that can like combine multiple functions together, and it is used very often to combine multiple effects together. And the idea of the pipe is that first you provide some value, and then you provide a series of functions that always take like one argument, and then it will return like new value for the another function. It will process it, return the value, and again. So this way you can go like one by one, same way as in pipe. So you have like one. It is 1 here, it is 1 plus 2, 3, and here you have a 3 times 3, it's 9. it will console log it and return the 9 again, and then it will transform the output to the string. So you can see that output of this pipe is a string. Same thing we can do in effects. So first we will do effect succeed, which will create an effect that returns a number, basically. And then we have a way how to do similar things in effects. So effect map will create a function that will kind of unwrap the value that is inside the effect. So you will get this one. If it is like success effect, you will get this, and it will call it and create new effect that will return the value. So you can do this, or you have a flat map, which is a way how from the value you can decide if you want to succeed or, for example, fail. So basically, effect map and effect flat map succeed is basically the same thing. Another useful thing is to tap into the effect. And this is done for like just I want to console log, and whatever is returned, it will be ignored by the tap. So it is similar to map, but you are just ignoring the return value, and the return value from here goes directly to here. Yeah. And then we can map again to the string. Okay, so let's go into the code and let's try to practice what we learned so far here. I have this repository. It contains the main application, but there are also some basics. So let's go into the code. Yeah, maybe I will close it. This is the repository. And there is this basics folder with 0.1 program with like very basic effect, and you'll try to play a little bit with it. In package.json, I prepared this basic 0.1 script, which is using tsx. It is a TypeScript runner. It will compile TypeScript, check for errors, and you can even watch the file for changes. So I will try to run it here in my editor. Maybe I will run it here. Yeah, I am already running it. Okay, I will increase it a little bit. So let's try to change it. 1, 2, 3. I will save it. Reruns the effect. So you can see that we are importing the pipe, the effect. This is effect module, and effect succeed is the function in the module. I can show you that it is really just basic function that returns an effect. And the pipe is again a generic function that can take like multiple arguments and return combined value. So let's try effect map. Effect map, and I will try to change 1, 2, 3 into just 23. So I have to subtract 100. And if I save it, you can see it returns 23. I can change the type into string, for example. I will do B, and let's see. Value is B. Okay, save, and you can see value. Let's put the semicolon or colon. And what about effect flat map? With flat map, I can also decide that I want to fail, for example, but let's try first to succeed. I will use a or value as an argument and succeed with something. Hello, something like that. Sorry, value. Okay, so it's hello value 23. Great. And if I want to fail, I can just return fail, and it will kind of crash the application because it is like the promise is not like really handling it, but we can get to it later. Or maybe, okay, let's do it now. I know that, okay, or not. Maybe do it later, yes. So, that's it for very basics of like using succeed map, flat map, and pipe, and run promise for the effect. So it is like basic building blocks. Not very useful for now, but you will see. Yeah, but with promises, we have like very nice way how to code in promises, but actually it looks like standard, like imperative code. We have this async await, so we can code almost as we don't have to think about promises. And code is like very readable, and we don't have to do this like .then chaining, .then, and everything like callbacks. It's like very nice way how to write promise-based code. With effect, we have something similar. It looks a little bit scary on the first sight. It is called effect.gen. And if you just again squint your eyes, it looks like very similar to async await. Instead of async, we have a async generator function. It is a generator with this asterisk. And for await, we have this yield with asterisk. And you can see that we are kind of like waiting for random number because random numbers are usually async. Same way here. And we are using sleep to delay execution for some amount of time. And this is like waiting for the effect to finish, and then it will continue with the execution here. It looks a little bit scary with yield and function generators, but you will get to it, used to it, and it will be like very easy for you to use. So one more thing that is very useful with effect, it is comparable to promise all. So for example, when we have this async function from previous slide, we can run a lot of those async functions, like 5 async function, it will wait for data from all of them. We can write the same thing in effect with effect all. So we have this effectful function that returns effect, and we have effect all for waiting for all services. By default, effect all runs one effect in sequence after each other. So it is not working exactly same as promise all, but we can set an option in effect all to concurrency unbounded, which will run all the effects at the same time, and it will return the data once all those effects are finished. And now we get to the main difference between the promises and effects. The problem with promises is that it is eager execution. So when you create a promise, it immediately executes, and there is no way how you can stop it. With effects, it is a lazy execution, and it will run only when you say that I want to run the whole program, basically. So the main advantage of this is that you can run effect all, and you can say that you want to have, for example, concurrency of 3. So this will run first 3 effects at the start. It will wait till one of those effects is finished. It will run another, and this way it will run always at most 3 effects and go through the array of effects one by one. And this is very powerful, for example, for like large data fetching, when you want to fetch in parallel, but you don't want to fetch like 1,000 requests at the same time. You want to fetch 1,000 requests, but 3 requests at the time at maximum. Or you can do it with, for example, database connections, because anything you can wrap in effect, basically anything can have this support for concurrency, because it is built into the effect, and it is lazy execution. You can like decide when this effect will run later. With promises, you don't have an option to decide, oh, let's please pause this promise. It has to be kind of built into the library, and it is like very complicated, very difficult to do. So this is, in my opinion, very, very important difference between promises and effect. And one of the reasons why I think the effect is like very, very good. So let's look into it in the demo. I will try to run the second demo. Let's open the second file. Yeah, so we have a effect that was immediately succeed. You can see the value 2000, and let's try to create this async gen effect. So how was it called? I will just open my snippet just to be async random. Let's create a function that will delay for num. Oh, sorry. No, I don't mean this delay. Auto imports. It will create I will put there a number, how long I want to delay, and it will create a random number and wait for like 2 seconds. So let's create effect gen. And for effect gen, I have a shortcut in my editor. I just write EGG, and it will generate for me this like useful snippet. In older version of effects, it was necessary to have this underscore argument, but in new versions of effects, it is not necessary. But maybe you will see it in some like older examples of the code, but you don't know, you no longer need it. And let's first try to get a random number. So let's have a data. It will be, we are trying to wait for a random number. Let's have a number between 0 and 100. And you can see that this function returns effect that returns a number. So we have to kind of wait for the effect. And you can see here that the data is already a number. So if we just return the data, this will create a function that will, it does not wait now, but it returns a number. So let's add a wait, and we can use effect sleep. And let's sleep for the delay that is provided here. Okay, so we have our effect gen prepared. Let's use effect map to combine it with this succeed. Oh, we have to use flat map. And here we get the delay, and we will provide it to async random. Yes, okay, so now it waits, and 14, if I save it again, it waits for 2 seconds and returns random number. So we get a delay, generate random number, wait, and return data. So you can see that we are taking one argument and providing it directly, so we can simplify it. Let's do this. Oh, no, not this. Let's remove the argument. We can just provide the function directly. This little bit more readable. It is still doing the same thing. And maybe we can add some logs. So let's add a log into, let's log the value. Let's call it, sorry, okay, before sleep and after sleep. So we will get always like value that is in the pipe. And let's see, this is the before sleep and after sleep and the return value. So maybe we can, yeah. So effect log is another like useful thing. It adds like system log level information into your like logging. So you have a timestamp, you have a like a level of logging, you have like parsable messages. So this is like very useful way how to log and how to have logs that are easy to machine learn and analyze. There is another way how to use console directly. You just have to use console module from effect. And if I change those, it will work basically as a traditional console log without any like special things. But for applications, it usually makes sense to add a timestamp, to add some like context specific, how to know which is like something like thread in effect, which fiber logged the output. So, okay. So that should be it for like basic introductions into the effect. It is like very basic things about the effect. There is very nice website the effect team created. Previously, before effect was like in the stable version, there was a problem with documentation, but now they have like excellent, almost like React documentation level experience with this. You can really get into different topics. Most of the core topics are handled, even with some like advanced things like batching and caching, concurrency, streaming. Everything is like here. There are some parts that are not yet in the main documentation, and it is mostly about effect related packages. There are some packages that are not part of the core effect library. So this is the core effect library, but there are, for example, platform specific things like platform. And those handle, for example, terminal output, HTTP requests, servers, key value stores, and things like that. There are a lot of like other interesting things like RPC, schema, SQL support, and things like that. Those are official packages by Effect team, but they are not yet documented in the main documentation website. You can read through the documentation mostly in the README of the project, and it is quite extensive. You can see this is documentation for effect schema, which is for schema validation, and this is effect platform for like reading files and things like that. Also, Effect has like very nice YouTube channel. There is this Effect Days conference. I've been there. It was like in March, I think, or April. And they have also recordings of the effect
underscore tag
workshops.
field, right?
So, sorry, I will pause it. And especially this one, beginner intermediate workshop is like excellent introduction into the effect. Okay, so that's for the basics. And let's dive into the core application that I prepared for this like example that you can run yourself, test it, and we will try to extend this application. It is an application for GitHub stars. It will kind of like download GitHub stars. Maybe I will first show the application. This is the front end part of the application. There is a backend, and the backend will connect to GitHub API, and it will page by page download all the stars you have on every repo you start in the GitHub. It will kind of download the information about the report, store it in a local SQLite database with support for full text search, and then the server provides data for the Expo application. So this application will send the query string. So for example, if I search for effect repos, it will return like repositories locally stored in the database, which is basically a mirror of the GitHub stars. If I want to search for React table or something like that, it's like very fast and like very simple example. Okay. So let's go into the code a little bit. The code base is using NX monorepo. You don't have to think about it. The main applications are in the apps folder, and there is also one shared library between the server and backend. We will get to it in a moment. The front-end part is using Expo and React Native, but you can render it in a browser as a React Native web application. So this is a React Native web, but you can also run it in a React Native mobile application if you like. To run the front end, you just have to install the packages. The info is in the README. Where is the README? Here. You just need Node.js with correct version. You just have to activate Corepec for the npm packages, and then you have to create environment variable with GitHub token. I have it set up in here with my private token, but the token I have is stored in 1Password, so you cannot really see it. But if I open I hope, yes. So you just have to provide here the token and it will work. I'm using 1Password, so it is not really visible. So if I run the client, I just have to run this command. It will start the Expo dev server with web. Okay. Then I have to open port 8081. It will compile and you can see the application. Okay, so let's go into the code of the application. It is not the main focus of this session, but there is a star search screen, and in this screen, I'm using React query to fetch data from the server. And then to render it as a component. It's not very nice React code. It could be improved, but I just wanted to have it like very simple thing. For the server, it generates this Swagger documentation. There are two API calls. One is for refreshing, like downloading fresh stars from GitHub. And second one, the GET request is for fetching stars for specific topic. So I can try it out. And if I try, for example, Angular, execute. Oh, yes. Okay. It returns an array of like Angular things. Oh, first one I have is React to Angular. Kind of funny. Yes, so it returns those array of like informations about repositories, and then I can display it. So if I do the same thing here, you can see that this is the response from the backend. Okay. So, okay, let's dig a little bit deeper into the fetching of this response. The server is running on the port 4000, so I just want to fetch the stars. I just have to provide a query parameter into the fetch, and then I'm already using effect pipe for processing the response from the server. Because with JSON, there is really no way how you can reliably say that this data is like in correct shape. So effect supports schema validation, and I have it prepared here, this correct like schema definition for the response from the server. So we can see that we have a basic start repo schema. You can see that it has a ID, name, full name, URL for the repository, languages that it supports, and array of topics. So you can see those topics up here. So those are the topics. It's array of strings. And this is like very similar to other schema validation libraries like Zot, Yap, and some others. But it is very useful to have to use effect schema together with like other effect code. It combines together very well. And thanks to effect schema being synchronous, you can just run it directly, and this decode unknown synths will run effect sync together, and you just provide a response and then the schema, and it will output valid schema or throw an error if there is some issue. So you can is already type safe, and this type definition is inferred from the schema we provided. So, okay, nice thing. It looks useful. And this is small demonstration about how you can use effect like even in the front-end code. Maybe I can extend this to use even effect fetch, and I will try to do it quickly because we don't have that much time. So with effect fetch, I can sorry, I just have to import few special packages from effect platform. Okay. And request bin. What is can oh yeah. I just have to, I think, handle errors, effect or die. Okay, no. What is, okay, I did not prepare this snippet that well, but you can, maybe we will see it later in the code of the backend server. So, but this kind of demonstrates the basic usage of like how you can construct effect HTTP request, how you can process it using the schema, and how you can handle some errors with like running unexpected exception. But let's now focus a little bit on the server side. Okay. So with the server, there is this main application. This is the starting point, and you can see that we are not using effect run, but we are using node runtime run main. It is very similar to effect run, but what it does, it provides some additional services like access to file system and things like that. So this is like enriched runtime for effect, so you can use more services. And the core of this application is here. It just imports the app, and it says that this app should listen on the specific port. So let's look into the app. And the app is using effect HTTP. It is like third-party library by one of the effect enthusiasts. And he created this library that is suitable for building like very nice effect built in HTTP servers. So basic stuff is that you want to define what this server can return. And we say that there is this endpoint /stars. It is a GET request. We define that we will expect some query parameters. We use effect schema for that. and we define that there is some response in specific shape. Same thing with the post request for refreshing star. And this schema definition is the way how this automatic documentation is generated. So if I change something in the schema definition, it will be reflected here. So I will not try to do it now because it will break type safety. But you can imagine that if I add like one more endpoint, maybe we can do it later, it will change the documentation. And then for the documentation, we are actually like building the implementation of the specific thing. So in here, we say that the /stars is handled by get stars. So this is the handler for the HTTP request. And you can see that this handler is like using stars DB repository. This is something special, and I will explain it. And it is like using this query parameter, which we already have type safe based on the definition here. And it is like searching in the database for all those results and returning it. Okay, so what is this repository? We have it also here with the GitHub repository. And let's get back into the slides. With React, we have this way how to provide context. It is a great way to provide, for example, some like services or some like values that should be everywhere in the application. So for example, authentication or authorization things. We can, at the root of the application, we can provide who is logged in user. So this authentication, and every component in the page or any component in the page can you connect to this context, and it will read the value without this value being spread everywhere manually. So you don't have to prop drill this value into every part of your application. You can kind of like magically connect to the specific context in the application. With effect, we have a same thing, but for like logic code. You can have an application, then you can provide a context as a, actually it is a layer, but you will see it. And anywhere in the application, we can just say, I want to connect to this context. I want to get some service with some like functions that I can call, and it will return effects. And I can very easily connect to any service this way. So if we look back into the main application, you can see that I'm creating the application and then I'm providing a lot of services. Yes. So let's look into the one of those services. So maybe first how it is used. So we have this GitHub repository. And with GitHub repository, it is a wrapper around GitHub API, and we want to get stars for a specific page. So we have to download like 100 stars, and then from the first page, second page, and then until we get like 0 results. So let's look into the repository. And this is the way how we can define contexts. It looks a little bit scary, but if I like clean it up a little bit, I say that this is a context. You can see that there is this helper for creating context. I just have to name it. Common way is to share the same way. If you have like multiple contexts, you can have some like prefixes, like for the module name or service name. Then it will create a class. I just have to provide it as an argument. And then I say that this context returns a function that returns effect. So you can call this function from the service. So this is just the context definition. It is just the definition. And then we have to provide implementation, which is this GitHub repository live. And you can see that it is using layer which is another like helper from effect. And this layer can provide implementation of this specific context. So I can then later return GitHub repository of, and this is a function which implements the fetching from GitHub API. So you can see now working HTTP fetch in effect. You can see that I just have to provide HTTP URL. I can say that I want to set some header. I want a response in special JSON. I can provide a bearer token, which is again read from another service. There is app configuration service that I provide. And set the URL parameter. I want to fetch 100 repositories on page 1. Then it just checks that it returns like status 200. I will validate it and process it using. This is necessary. This is scoped. This is necessary when you create some like resourceful services. For example, this HTTP request will create a resource that can be kind of like closed or things like that. And the scope will give you a way how you can finalize when the things should be closed. For example, if you cancel this request, if you try to kill it, it should kill even the HTTP request. So this is like high level or higher complexity things to do. You just have to write scope and it will work. We are also console logging if there are some like errors. And one more thing, we are providing open telemetry spans. So with span, it's a way how to provide special notion into open telemetry. Because with this repository, we have also provided like basic open telemetry service. Effect has built-in support for very simple and very easy way how to integrate with telemetry. So you can have very observable and very easy to like debug code even in production or in how to investigate. And let's look into the telemetry. I will just check that it is running correctly. I have it running here locally in the podman. Okay, it's running correctly. By the way, there is a Docker Compose that you can run this service on your own. And if we go to explore tempo, I can see requests. So let's run one request and to do. Okay, does it work? I just have to check. Oh, yes. I have to undo the changes I did in the front end, I think. So let's quickly undo those. I don't know why it did not work. Oh, it now? No, it does not work. Okay. Okay. Maybe I will add it into the repository later after the presentation, like the correct solution for this. Let's try to refetch. Yes, so you can see that there is this request. Okay. Yeah, one more thing. I just have to import schema. Work this way, no. Schema. Yeah. Okay. To do? Yes. Okay. So I created multiple requests because every time I type something, it will be there. You can see that we have a new span here, and I can observe like what it did. It did like HTTP request, We have some like events, and I can really see a little bit, just a little bit, what is like happening there. This is not that interesting span, but if I try to refetch repositories, to refresh those repositories, let's open the console log. And if I try to fetch those repositories again, I just have to execute it from here. You can see that it is fetching page by page. The GitHub API is like quite slow in this manner. And it is really like taking some time to fetch multiple pages from GitHub API. So let's see this one. I just have to close this, refresh. Yeah, it should be already here. No. Where is it? Here. Yeah, this one. So you can see that it is like slowly fetching one by one. You can see that it is even, maybe I will, it is even running like executing inserts into the database. And those inserts are actually batched. So it will try to insert one by one multiple repositories into the database, but actually it will create like one big insert into the database, which is here. You can even observe like insert like multiple things with a lot of question marks. It is handled for you by effect. And this code actually lives in the app here. So you can see that we are trying to go page by page. This effect iterate creates an effect that can like run in a loop. It will run in the loop with like initial value, and it will try to run until this condition is still valid. There is this stop iteration, which I decided that it will be -1. So if I return -1, it will end. But page by page, it will try to fetch from the repository and insert into the database. And it will run all those effects as a batched things together. So it will try to batch them and create like one insert together. But the problem is that it is quite slow. You can see that it is still running because we are on page 43. I will just kill it and run again. And with effect, we have a way how to create like multiple workers that will do the same thing for us. So we have this worker that will fetch with initial page 0. But let's create multiple workers, for example, 5. I have this prepared here. So let's have 5 workers. And in here, every worker, before it edit like one page, but this will add like +5 for every page. So we will create 5 workers. First will start on page 1, second on page 2, and then they will iterate page +5 till all of them finish. So we can do it. We just have to modify how we create not like one worker and wait for it, but we can create like multiple workers. So let's create workers. It is, we just create an array of 5 elements, and for every element, we will create an effect. So worker is array of effects. So we can wait for array of effects using effect all. So I will just, no, not here, sorry. Yield effect all. Let's wait for all workers. And I can say that I want a concurrency of this. Okay, then we don't have a specific effect. And with a little bit of work, we just transformed it into parallel fetch. So let's try to trigger it. Okay, I will go to the Swagger. Let's execute. And you can see it's now much faster. It fetches like 5 requests at the same time and then every request take like a few seconds, but you can see that now we are processing like much faster. We can see it even in the open telemetry. But maybe we are a little bit over time. We will skip it in the open telemetry. So this is the context. This is the documentation. And now a little bit of closing thoughts for the effect. Yes, so I love effect. It's great. It looks a little bit complicated, but what I really like about effect is that it is production ready. It is API stable for a few months already. It's API stable. So there is this major release, Effect 3.0, that was released like a few months ago. And since then, they promised that they will not break API for quite some long time. And if they will break it, there will be new major version. It looks a little bit challenging, but I think in like few days or 1 week, you can get productive. And the big advantage of Effect is that you can adopt it incrementally. You can with pipe, simple effects, then you can add concurrency, services, and you don't have to do everything at start. You can start small and adapt later. I think the biggest advantage for me is the layer system, because this makes your code much more testable, much more like reusable, less spaghetti code, and you can create like really amazing scalable applications thanks to effect context and layers. Regarding some other packages, those are maintained by core team, but they are less stable. They are not like 1.0 version yet. So time to time, they break API in small changes. It is production ready, but they are just like trying to design for a lot of use cases. So there is a lot of like responses from the community. So effect platform and schema, time to time it breaks. You just have to tweak like few lines in the code, it will work again, but don't expect like the API stability from this. So it could be like for some developers, it could be, I don't want to use effect now. I will wait a little bit. So should you use it? I think for hobby projects, it's like no-brainer. Please try it. It's great, and you will be happy with it, I think. For new projects, if you have like open-minded team, I think it's also no-brainer. But sometimes there is like big time pressure, or I don't know, the client could be like less open to trying like new technologies. And maybe also for existing projects, I think it is depending on the team, customer, and for me, it is best to create like small proof of concept first, to try it in team, how the team feels about it, because it's like additional work somebody has to learn. I think in long term, it can save a lot of time and a lot of trouble, especially debugging and like creating monitoring, production-ready monitoring. Everything is built in with Effect, but first you have to learn it a little bit. And another consideration could be like bundle size, especially for the front-end applications. Effect team says that it is 3 shakeable, but still it adds like few hundred kilobytes to the front-end code. So if you are creating like, I don't know, eShop with SEO optimization, it could be like less optimal choice, but everything is trade-off. Even the effect, I think, is creating like minimal version of effect. It was like introduced like last week. So maybe there will be a way how to use like very small version of effect even for very bundle size challenging projects. But a lot of projects are like megabytes of JavaScript. There are very complex applications. And in this case, I think effect can like save a lot of trouble. And that's it